Hi, I'm going to talk about the Santa Cruz Tallboy right now. So, a little introduction, funny story. I About 2-3 years ago, I tried all the full suspension 29ers that were available, maybe eight or nine of them, all the best ones. And I ended up not riding one for my personal use because I just wasn't too jazzed about it. I was more comfortable riding a Nomad or a Remedy for full suspension. And for my hardtail, yeah, I had 29er. I had a couple of them. So the um, the full suspension 29er for me, I was kind of waiting in the wings. I go, well, let's let it develop a little bit. And the funny thing is, some of my buddies in Santa Cruz have been riding Santa Cruz 29er mules because they're part of the R&D. And I would just look at them and I go, ah, because I wasn't into them. And you know how mules look? They look like mules. Basically, they look like aluminum abominations because they cut them and weld them and cut them and weld them until they get it right. So when they said they're going to send me a 29er, I said, "No, take your time." But Ferentino sent one over, and here it is. And boy, color me impressed. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't super chomping at the bit because it's their first effort, and normally you want version 2, version 3 to come out from a company until you jump in full tilt. But as soon as I saw it, as soon as I wrote it, I said there's something going on here. And then I looked at the forums and the web, and you can't even get this bike. It is so in demand. And let me go through why. So what's happening here is they went carbon, all carbon, their best carbon, they put it on the 29er. And there's a reason for that. So this is a full carbon layup, no tubes and no bonding. So this is a layup, and the rear triangle is another layup. What that means is they mold it at once, so it's the lightest, strongest, and stiffest possible. And what they came out was a 5-pound frame in the medium size, and that is crazy light. Most of the 29ers that I tested were 7 pounds. They said, oh, we're about 6.1, 6. It was really 6.99 in the small. They were all so heavy, and they were all kind of flexy. So Santa Cruz said, let's make it super light, and more important, let's make it super stiff. The guys at Santa Cruz say they could have made this even lighter, 4.5, 4.4 pounds, but they said that's not what it's about. We got to address the problem, which is flex. What is flex? Since you have a longer lever arm, it's easy to flex the rear of a 29er full suspension. And anyone who's ridden a full suspension can tell you that, oh, it feels kind of noodly on single track, and that's because you're countering flex. Same thing on the front. You have a longer lever as well, so it's going to flex this. So what they did was, this thing is massive. I'm not sure it's going to show on video, but this thing is huge. All these tubes are huge. What they have here is 1.5 inches to 1.1 inches, but it looks even bigger than that since they have so much material going on. It goes all the way to the bottom bracket. So they have a super stiff, super robust frame, and then they have the touches that are just so impressive. Like this chainstay protector. It's a piece of rubber. It's built into the frame. It's so cool. And this, everyone with carbon is afraid that chain sock is gonna just ruin their frame. Well, Santa Cruz just bonded a piece of metal here, part of the frame. And I've seen a lot of carbon frames, and I haven't seen it done up quite like this. They put a carbon linkage. Super awesome, lightweight. And then these bolts and pivots are a lot more complicated than they appear. They have a lot of experience and a lot of bad experience with bolts and pivots going bad on their, or getting loose on their other VPP frames. So they've developed a lot of technology to counter that. They just don't want to see this anymore. They have a lifetime warranty on these bearings and pivots. So they've developed contact seals, conical seals to avoid that. And over here in the bottom, this aluminum rear pivot has a whatchamacallit, a grease port, where you just inject grease in there and it's gonna spit out the old grease, because that part is critical. If you live in high debris, high wetness and grime situations. So there you go, titanium hardware, carbon, 5-pound frame. It really looks impressive. And I've been riding this I've ridden this about 20 times, climbing, jumping, not out of town yet, not in the Sierra Nevadas, but in the local Santa Cruz Mountains. And the ride is incredible. Like I said, I wasn't super jazzed about these bikes, but there's two bikes that are really have taken my breath away this year in the last 12 months. It's the Gary Fisher Superfly 100, similar carbon bike, full suspension, 29er, and this one. How is it so impressive? Well, it climbs crazy. You got the 29er advantage, and it's super snappy on a single track. I believe a lot of that has to do with not only how stiff this is, but how short this is. This is 17.5 inches long. I had a 9er bike here earlier, hardtail, and it was in a salsa one bike, and that was 17.5. This thing is so short; it's as short as a hardtail bike. I don't know how they did it. They did some bending and magic creation of space with these carbon tubes. But 17.5 is crazy short. That's even shorter than the Superfly at 17.8, and it's shorter than a lot of the other bikes I tested before. Turner, Ventana, they were all 18.4, 18.5. And why is that important? The more you're on top of your rear wheel, the shorter it is, the quicker the bike. The more agile. So that's good. The other thing that's good is there seems to be no play on the front. Very stable front end. So you can just carve like this. It works out good. Very responsive. And then, top it off, it's bomb-proof as well. You can jump, take drops, do all you want. It's confidence-inspiring. Not only because of with the 29er wheel, but because of how rigid it is. A couple tricks that they did was they got, this is an OE spec. I believe this is their XT spec. They have a Chubb hub. Great guys from Northern California. They have a super big hub with a high flange, with a very strong rim, and just a lot of tension. So what you have is a wheel that's super strong. Not a lot of flex in this wheel. That's about as much force as I can do. And they put in a 15 mil through axle hub. So the way they spec this is excellent. And it's just a package that's just well thought out. It's like they've been doing 29er for a long time. It's like version 3 or version 4. So it's pretty unbelievable that they nailed it on their first time. And the evidence shows you can't get one of these bikes. You'll have to wait months. You'll be on a waiting list. Maybe March if you put your order in now. So let me give you some downsides. The downside, there's really just one downside, and that's the price. It's $23.50 for the frame, and the way it's spec'd right now, which is no XTR, nothing bling, $5 grand, because Santa Cruz believes in in really completing the bike with the right components. You know, with the wheels, not putting any heavy wheels or cheap wheels on it. Another downside, so the price is really the only downside. Another downside, which is easy to fix, is they always sell this bike with the Kenda SB8 tires, which is a great tire if you're running a hardtail on super berm conditions. For a bike like this, get rid of that tire. You know, I was kind of sliding on mine pretty quickly as when the conditions got snotty, and I slashed it because it's a thin tire. So what I put on was a little Albert on the rear and a Kenda Navigal on the front. That's proper rubber for a bike of this ability. You know, I flip the stem and I have an incredible machine. You know, one of the downsides is you can't categorize the bike. You know, people will say, oh, it's good for long endurance, for all day kind of riding. Yeah, it's good for that. But it's good for carving Santa Cruz too, for an hour. You know, it's good for racing downhill, climbing up and climbing down. Now, I think you're gonna see this in so many applications. It's gonna be crazy. Just like the Superfly 100. You know, change the wheels, change the tires, and you could XC race it and win. You can endurance race it. You can go, you can go trekking on it. You know, just like the traditional 29er bikes have always been good at. But hey, bike like this, you can do some jumps too. You know, you can go to do some tech stuff at Moab, maybe Whistler. We'll see. All right, so hats off to Santa Cruz for an incredible first 29er effort, the Santa Cruz Tallboy. Thank you.